All right, welcome into the line. Talk 99.5. This is Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for the Andrew McLean, doing the best I can, filling some big shoes here. Today's my last day. I'm surprised they invited me back, but here I am. Um, Not because the content wasn't good. I'm just a controversial person. One of the reasons Andrew McLean has he and I have created a relationship. He had me on the podcast several years ago, heard my story, heard my testimony. I'm sure most of the people listening have heard that. Maybe I'll go into that a little bit later today. But then it was when the Turning Point USA stuff happened with me. And so, little kind of history just on that. I have somehow become the most controversial political person in the state of Alabama since George Wallace. Okay, all because I say the things that I said on the radio yesterday. And my theory on that is I'm not a political pugilist, or I'm not saying things just to get a rise. There's a word that's slipping my mind right now, that you have a lot of these kind of online guys that are on Twitter, and they just say bombastic things in order to get a reaction. That's not the point of why I say the things that I say. I say the things that I say because I believe them, and I believe that we have a civilization to save, and the ability to save our civilization, the solutions to what ails us, is right outside the Overton window. And so, in order to get the Overton window to move to where we actually have the options that we need to be able to save our civilization, we have to be willing to take the slings and arrows that come with being on the far right, whatever that means, of the Overton window, and really outside of the Overton window on the right, pulling on it. And so there's people who are inside the Overton window on the right pushing, and then there's people who are outside of the Overton window on the right with the rope pulling. But we have to move that Overton window to the right, because the solutions to fixing this communist, Marxist, socialist, godless, atheist, whatever problem that our nation faces and that our state is at war with as well, those solutions are found to the right of where the Overton window currently is. Now, I will say one of my favorite things that Donald Trump has done since he's been in office is that he has moved the Overton window way to the right. Him and JD Vance. JD Vance is just a tremendous gift in his ability to communicate these basic truths. And these basic truths that JD Vance communicates on a regular basis are to the right of what you're allowed to say. There's acceptable dialogue, and then there's being outside of that acceptable dialogue. That's what that Overton window is. And so when you come in and you say basic common sense things that have been true forever in the history of Western civilization, but because of the school marms that are running our society and the HR ladies, you're not allowed to say these things because they're deemed, again, like, there's nothing racist about anything you say, but they'll call you racist, okay? Or they'll call you sexist, or they'll call you homophobic, or they'll call you xenophobic, just for simply stating basic truths. And so, anyway, my point in saying all that, the reason that I say the things I say is not because I'm a provocateur. It's not that I like to get on Twitter and cause fights with mean tweets. My strongly held belief is that we have a civilization to save, and that's why I do what I do for a living. But going back to the point of how Andrew McLean and I kind of got acquainted, kind of more so, was through the Turning Point, asking me to speak at their events, at their college campuses, and doing their Prove Me Wrong events. And through this process, I have seen how many people hate me and what I believe, and those who believe what I believe. And so I'm kind of the face of the things that I'm saying. And there's many people who believe what I believe. But when you go out and speak those things in public in a big way, it comes with some slings and arrows. And so the first time it was a couple weeks after Charlie Kirk died, maybe 6 weeks. I don't remember the exact date, but it wasn't long after Charlie was shot. My first Turning Point event was at a Turning Point USA Faith event at a church in North Alabama, and I was scheduled to speak there. I was happy to do it. I think I was scheduled to speak there before uh, Charlie was shot. I don't remember exactly, but I was asked to speak, and then the church building that I was supposed to speak at the day before I was supposed to speak there was vandalized, and it says Brian Dawson serves the Antichrist, which is news to me. I'm used to being called a fascist and a Nazi and a racist and all the things. I'm used to those, but serves the Antichrist, that was unique. That was unique, and so found that crazy. But I can tell you, after watching Charlie get shot for speaking the truth, and then going to a Turning Point event not long after he got shot, where that building has been vandalized with kind of hateful rhetoric, that'll put hair on your chest. And so went and did that event and was able to meet some of the Turning Point people there that run kind of the southeast region for Turning Point, getting people on campuses. And they said, "Hey, man, loved your speech. Would you like to do some prove me wrongs?" And again, it's one thing to be able to go to a college campus and speak, and that's awesome. To be able to just go and have an audience of young aspiring college students that are either in the middle, or maybe they're already right wing, or they're left wing and they want to kill you. Either way, to be able to go and just speak the truth. And with me, that's always my political. I have what's called political theology, and so anything that I'm going to say political is going to be steeped in Christian doctrine and Christian history. And the history of Western civilization, and to go and there's a hunger and a thirst for this knowledge on these college campuses. And so I got kind of donned the guy that's going to do the prove me wrongs, because it's one thing to go and speak on a college campus, it's another thing to go debate a bunch of college students. And I'd never done anything like this before. Okay, I'd never thought about doing anything like this. It never crossed my mind that I could even do it. But I'm one of those guys. If you give me an opportunity, I'm like, yes, I can do it. And we'll hope it goes well. So Montevallo is the first college campus, first university campus that I was supposed to speak at. And we posted it up everywhere on 1819. They were advertising it. Turning Point was advertising it. And, we're going to do this big prove me wrong. At Montevallo. And Montevallo is, kind of a fairly liberal university, but there's some really good folks there. Good students, good faculty, good trustees there. But because, and I guess this will get me to get into a little bit of my background. Because of my background, because I was in prison and I got saved in prison, I'll maybe go into that later. If it's like I forget who knows my story and who doesn't. I've been on Talk 995 for 4.5 years, and I've told my story on Leland Show. I've told my story when Matt Murphy was here. My story is out there; like you can Google it. The World Magazine's done a story about my story. Newsweek's done it, so it's not like it's this hidden thing. But because of my criminal history, and combined with the Bubba Copeland saga that happened, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, the pastor of First Baptist Church, Phoenix City, was also the mayor of Smith Station, who was moonlighting as a drag queen, reading books, or excuse me, moonlighting as basically living a double life as an online trans porn star, actually. And as he was doing that, and doing all kinds of other things, we exposed that. He got in the pulpit and downplayed it and defended himself into a Baptist church, at a First Baptist church in Phoenix City. And we dripped out several more stories that the details were much more alarming. And the sheriff's deputies went to do a wellness check on Mr. Copeland. And when they turned their lights on to pull him over just to check on him, he ended up taking off and getting into a high-speed chase. Car crashes, and I don't know if it crashes. The chase came to an end, I guess, in my mind. He had a telephone pole or something. But he gets out with a pistol and says, "I'm not going to take this blank anymore," and puts a gun to his head and shoots himself. Okay. And the left, in the way that the left views things, they can't see things as logically as that this guy made a bunch of really bad decisions, and those really bad decisions caught up with him, and he didn't want to face the consequences of those really bad decisions he made, so he took his own life. That's what happened objectively. Okay. Well, the way the left looks at it is like, look at this freaking criminal Brian Dawson who just killed this pastor. That's how they look at it. Okay. And so because of that, when I went to, when I go anywhere to speak, there's this lashing out by the left to protest me being allowed to speak or being allowed to be on campus, because they're like, this murderer, he killed Bubba Copeland. Oh my gosh, he should still be in prison, and all of the other things. And it's like, I mean, I didn't, we obviously didn't kill that guy, right? He made a decision to end his own life because he didn't want to face the consequences for the things that he had done, and the things that he had done were sick. But that's not the way that the liberal mind virus works. It's not the way that they think. And so, I went to Montevallo to speak, and they lost the student body there, the left-leaning student body, which is hefty there. A lot of them, and some of them are hefty also. But they weren't having it, and so they staged a protest. Then there ended up being death threats. Brian Dawson deserves the Charlie Kirk treatment. Blah 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 blah. Coming in on Facebook, coming in on Twitter, coming in on Discord, coming in on all these different chat groups to where it was overwhelming, and the school didn't know what to do. Not only with the student protests, but specifically with all these death threats, they were concerned for my safety. They ended up canceling the event. I thought they canceled the event because they were trying to appease the left leaning students, and I kind of freaked out, lashed out at the University of Montevallo. Tuberville even came in off the top ropes and is like, Brian Dawson's a patriot. You need to let him speak. And they proved me wrong, pun intended, though, because when I got to Montevallo after we rescheduled the event, they took such incredible care of me, and it was just such an incredible experience to be there and to do that. But to go in there, there was 40 law enforcement officers from University Police to Montevallo Municipal Police, Alabaster City Police, county sheriffs, Shelby County sheriffs. There's federal law enforcement. They had counter snipers. There was drones. I mean, it was insane to go into this environment just to go be able to debate with college students, to have what was essentially like presidential security. Okay. It was insane to go in there just to debate students over these basic things that I say anytime you put a microphone in front of my face, because I say these things because there's a civilization to save, whether it's at a university in front of, there's 300 students that showed up there, which, is, I guess the way when Turning Point goes and does these kind of pop up prove me wrongs on university campuses that aren't super heavily promoted like the actual Charlie Kirk ones, 40 to 50 is considered a good crowd, and we brought 300. And it was a ton of fun. You can go there onto my podcast, go to 1819 News, the podcast on YouTube. It's just 1819 podcast, and scroll back. I don't even remember, but you can scroll back and you'll see I did one with Representative Ernie Yarborough at University of Alabama, Huntsville. That one was really, really good. But the one at Montevallo, that was my breakout one. That was the first one I ever did. And man, what a strange environment to go into with that much law enforcement and security. And, to basically have, I'm in this black security SUV with med kits and guns, and we're backing into the venue so that if I get shot, they can essentially throw me in this thing and drive me out to the hospital without having to back up. And to walk through this area and go and then debate these 300 students, it was intense, man. But I can tell you, every time I speak, my prayer is always that the Lord would speak through me. Right now, I'm speaking to a microphone, talking to over 10,000 people, very likely. My prayer is always, that the Lord would speak through me, that I would be a vessel. And I've never experienced that more than I did that day at Montevallo. It was truly incredible. Encourage you guys to check it out. 1819 News, the podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to my podcast too. If you guys enjoy me on the radio, I basically do this every week on my podcast, once a week. 1819 News, the podcast. Go like, subscribe, comment, and share. We're going to hit a break, and I'll come back, and I'll be rambling about something else. And it's going to be awesome. So, all right, we'll be back on the other side. There it is. Hard to break up Tom Petty. Sometimes you just want to sit and listen to him rather than go on. My next rant, but here I go. This is Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for Andrew McLean on Talk 99.5's The Line. I don't know. I love what they've done here with Talk 99.5. It is a local talk station on the biggest blowtorch stick that you can have. And so in radio world, which is my background before I got into founding 1819 News, I worked in national radio syndication, so I understand the radio industry and the business end of radio more than most. Not, I mean, there's certainly people in this building that know it way better than me. But it's a 100,000 watt blowtorch that they've made the decision that we actually, rather than putting a country music station or an urban station or whatever, which is what you would normally do with a 100,000 watt blowtorch, they said we're gonna put a local talk station on there, and their commitment to doing that, I think, has paid huge dividends, because it's local talk. It's not, again, not that there's anything wrong with that, as Seinfeld would say, but so this is a Cumulus station. So usually on the talk stations, they would fill it with the Westwood One lineup: Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino, et cetera, et cetera. It's nationally syndicated talk. They're all talking about what's going on in D.C. It's all red meat conservative issues. It's, what is Nancy Pelosi doing? What is Vladimir Putin doing? What is Bibi Netanyahu doing? What is blah, 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 blah. And there's nothing local and special and unique about it. You can turn on Fox News and get the same thing that you can get on nationally syndicated radio, but when people are in their car, they want to tune in, and they have an affinity for their host, and the radio actually makes more money than the TV, which is an interesting thing that people don't know. Sean Hannity's radio show brings in more money than his Fox News TV show, and so radio is a powerful tool. But the power of local radio and what they're doing here at Talk 99.5 is just something that I've always really, really loved, as they made a real commitment to the people of Birmingham and North Alabama that they're going to have a local talk station on a 100,000 watt blowtorch, and they're bringing in excellent talent to talk to you guys. Yes, sometimes about what's going on in DC, but when you have a local station, they can talk about what's going on at the Hoover City Council and why there's Muslims trying to take over, or these issues that are hyper local that Dan Bongino or Ben Shapiro or Rush Limbaugh back in the day or whatever. They are not going to talk about that because they're talking to everyone in the nation. But this place, this radio station here is talking to the people in North Alabama, and so people behind these microphones can actually talk and touch on issues that are hyper local with the reach that they have, and I just think that's a beautiful thing. And I think that the reason I started 1819 News is that I wanted to bring national level talent and national production value that you see on national media, but I wanted to take that and I wanted to do it at the state level. I wanted to do that at the state level, and that's what we've done. You got Jeff Poor as our editor-in-chief. Hopefully you guys are familiar with him. He's guest hosted here a number of times. But Jeff Poor, he went to Washington, D.C. when he was younger and worked directly for Tucker Carlson at the Daily Caller. Steve Bannon personally hired him and his wife away from Tucker Carlson to go work at Breitbart as an editor at Breitbart, where he worked for Steve Bannon and then Ben Shapiro. And then I was able to hire him away from Breitbart to be the editor-in-chief of 1819 News. And so we have this national talent. I've got the national media business background. I've worked in national radio syndication. I've gotten shows picked up by iHeart, and I wish I could say it was Westwood One because I'm on a Cumulus station, but it was iHeart. It was Premier Networks that picked up the show that I helped build and distribute. And so I have 5 years sitting with a guy named Lee Habib, who's one of the most brilliant media moguls in the country. And Lee Habib trained me in the media business, and so taking my national media business acumen back to the state of Alabama, taking Jeff Poor's national media editing and newsroom background and using it just for the state of Alabama, because we believe that when we focus on the things in our state, we can actually make a difference. And I'm also being told that I have to tell you guys that apparently I'm so electric that there was a power surge that hit the building here, or maybe it was just a strike of lightning. But that is affecting how things that are coming out of the radio. If you're some calls and complaints are coming in that there may be our reach may be affected, or the way that it's sounding on the radio may be affected. So we apologize about that, and I'm sure they've got engineers working around the clock to get that fixed. And again, in my mind, I'll just tell myself that I'm lightning and I was the one that did that because I'm electric. That's what I have to tell myself to keep myself going. We got 4 hours of radio to do here. Also, if you want to call in and join the call, yesterday I didn't take a lot of calls. I had a lot of guests, and I let the guests go longer than I had originally anticipated because I thought the guests had something to say that was worth listening to, and so I had them stay on longer, and there wasn't a lot of time to call in. But today I'd love to talk to you guys. You can call in at 844-455-TALK 9950. Talk 995. We'll be back on the other side of this break. And there it is. Some pretty hot bumper music there. And you got to have faith. That's what he's saying. That's the only way we win, guys. Well, on the subject of winning, I mean, look at that transition. I mean, pretty amazing if I don't say so myself. I got to give myself compliments because no one else is going to do it. So I do that to keep my self esteem running high. But on the subject of winning, I'm bringing on the man who won the very hotly contested lieutenant governor's race. I'm bringing on John Wall, the former Alabama Republican Party chairman, who got into the race very, very late with a Trump endorsement, I think that motivated him to jump in the race. He was endorsed by Donald Trump before he even said that he wanted to run for lieutenant governor. Came in late and was able to just run a phenomenal campaign. I believe you kept your punches above the belt. Can't be said the same for everybody in this last runoff cycle. You ran a good, clean race. You got your message out there. It was very well consulted. And you put some major points on the board. You won by almost 20 freaking points, and that's not easy to do when your opponent was a completely Montgomery-funded, every freaking PAC in the state and all of the established interests went in on your opponent, and you smoked him. So there it is,
Yeah.
John Wall.
Well, look, that great introduction. But I want to say first, this is all about the people of Alabama.
Yeah.
And I said that constantly during the campaign, right? I didn't want this to be about me. I didn't want it to be about my opponent or even the lieutenant governor's office. I wanted it to be about a movement and about the people of the state, and that they deserve better government. They deserve freedom fighters. They deserve, elected officials who are going to go to Montgomery or going to go to D.C. and actually fight for them. We see all these guys just bow the knee, lose the backbone when they're actually in the fight, and that was my message. And I think the people of Alabama sent a very clear message back that this is what they want. They want a conservative fighter. They want someone who's not in the political system. They don't want another career politician. They want a conservative fighter who's going to go to Montgomery, who's going to fight to drain the swamp, downsize government, and stand for our rights and freedoms. And so I give all credit to first my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, but then the people of Alabama. And I think that's the important thing. And look, and I want this to be a message to all the other candidates out there. People who are thinking about running, get in the fight. You can win. You don't need the Montgomery PACs. You don't need the establishment. You can win running your own race. And like you said, you can win without going negative, without all these nasty gutter ads. Be respectful. Talk to the people about where you stand, and you can still win an election the old-fashioned way.
Amen. Well, on that point of you mentioning the number one thing that you're running for is your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I want to say I got to know you. I came in, you were the head of Algop. I was just starting 1819 News. I didn't know, since we're on an FCC radio station, I didn't know my butt from a hole in the ground. Okay, I didn't know anything. I came in, and you were the chairman, and we got to know each other. And what's transpired since that point 4.5 years ago to today, the Lord, for whatever reason, it is my, kind of sentiment that he has just decided to pour out his blessing on the state of Alabama. And of course, I will selfishly say that 1819 News is a huge part of that. I didn't create 1819 News. I didn't, think this thing up. It was literally something that was thrown in my lap, and it was almost impossible for it to go the way that it did. So you have the mix between that, and then all of these other candidates.
By the way, I got to stop you there because that sounds so familiar, like almost like a Trump endorsement thrown in your lap, and you had nothing else to do.
Exactly.
I identify with that feeling.
Yes, and that's my point: is that God just decided He's going to bless Alabama with a bunch of really good people in office that are, about to actually. And Alabama has always been the most culturally conservative state in the nation, but its representatives were not governing in a way that was consistent with the values of the people. And so Alabama has always been in this position. If we could just get people in these big elected seats, which was a big vision for us when we started 1819, that Alabama could actually be, even more so than Florida, kind of the shining city on a hill for the rest of the country to look to on how we should govern and how we should do things. And I think we have that opportunity.
Look, I agree 100%. And look, and I'm gonna say the same thing about 1819, right? Like if it's a movement, if it's something where it's the grassroots, the grassroots kind of taking control, it does have to be more than just elected officials. Because look, most elected officials follow polling, or they follow money, or they call it, they're not true leaders.
Yeah.
And I think what we need are true leaders. I think 1819 has proved that in the media world. You actually don't get bought or sold. You stand up for what's right, and that's the same thing we need in the political world, because it's true leaders, that actually define what good policy is.
Yep.
I remember I was actually talking. Ron DeSantis had invited me down to his Christmas party last year in the governor's mansion in Florida. And I was down there, and that's what he literally. I was talking to him about his policies, and he was like, "Look," he said, "John, I don't follow polls." He said, "I move polls." He said, "I get the people. I explain the issue, and I move the numbers in that favor." And that's what a good leader does. And it caught my attention because he's absolutely right. You stand for what's right, and then if you can explain it, and if you have the values, if you have what's right on your side, the people will follow a leader who can explain the values and explain why this is best for the state. And I think that's what we need more of. And look, I think Tuberville's bringing that in as governor. I'm certainly going to stand for that as lieutenant governor. And I think we've got a unique opportunity in Alabama to see Alabama be where we should be, by the way, which is leading the nation when it comes to conservative principles that defend the rights and the freedoms of every single individual.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, do you have a Democrat contender, or is it just home free?
I do have a Democrat. His name is Philip Ensler. He's a state rep in the Montgomery area.
Forgot about that.
So, yeah.
Well, there you go.
Look, I mean, this is Alabama, so I'm confident in my general election, but I'm also not taking anything for granted. And I actually want to get back out there and work, and especially in some of these swing areas around the state. Up in Madison County, Will Barfoot's Senate district. There's a few areas where I want to target my campaign to also help some down ballot races. Yeah. Because this race is not over, and we want to definitely get out there and talk to voters, but especially the independents and what I call common sense Democrats, that we need to peel off of this radical socialist movement that has become the Democrat Party. And I think we can do that by talking about the issues and talking about the values of it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican, Democrat, or independent. Most people actually want a better life for themselves and their children, and that is not through the policies of the Democrat Party right now.
I was talking to your successor, Chairman Stadhagen, yesterday when he called in, and one of the things, it's not a concern to me, because just when you have really conservative people, starting with Tommy Tuberville and then you and Catherine Robertson and Barry Moore, and so you've got this like really right-wing, ticket that we have, and all the way down to Andrew Sorrell, Caroline Dobson. I mean, these are all people with 1819 March. I'm just going to say, okay, these are all people that are like our people. They have the same vision for the state that you and I do, from the U.S. Senator down to the auditor, maybe even the treasurer. But like, we all have this very conservative vision for the state. And what that does, though, is that gets the Democrats fired up. That gets people like Doug Jones ready to rally and say, well, Tommy Tuberville is going to be the second coming of Bull Connor and George Wallace. He's going to have the German shepherds and the fire hoses out again. And he'll get all the Democrats riled up. But the thing that people don't think about is like, yeah, it'll get the Democrats riled up. But guess what? In a general election, you're going to see Trump numbers turning out, because they're going to be so damn excited to go vote for people who actually represent their values, rather than another freaking meemaw, okay, or some, snooze fest candidate at the top of the ticket that just makes you want to. Anyway, you catch my point. So, yes, we're going to energize 100%. The Democrats, but the conservative base is going to be energized like never before as well. What are your thoughts?
100%. Look, that same energy that's going to turn out Democrats is going to turn out Republicans. And look, I love Doug Jones in that I made his A-list. So back a couple months ago, he said when he gets elected governor, which I think that was hilarious.
Presumptuous.
But he said when he gets elected governor, his first thing he's going to do is remove me from the state library board. And I was ecstatic, because I was like, I've made it. I'm Doug Jones' number one guy to take out. This is where I wanted to get my entire time, right? Like I'm a thorn in the side of the enemy, and that's where I want to be. But no, it hires the radicalness of the Democrat Party. If you've got their leading candidate, their top of the ticket, who's literally saying his top priority is making sure that we put garbage, that we put sexually explicit content in front of our children.
Yeah.
That shows just how far out of touch these people are with the people of Alabama, with the parents of Alabama, and with the values of Alabama.
Yeah.
And once the public realizes that, you are absolutely right. It's our job as Republicans to remind them what these people stand for. And when we do, there is going to be an overwhelming vote for Republicans.
Amen. That's good stuff. Well, can you stay around for another segment, or do you got to go?
No, let's do it. I'm in. I'd love it.
All right, we're going to hit this commercial break. This is The Line on Talk 99.5. I'm Brian Dawson filling in for Andrew McLean. We'll be back after these commercials. All right, we're back. Talk 99.5. This is The Line. Brian Dawson, CEO of 1819 News, filling in for the Andrew McLean for a few more hours, and then he'll be back next week, I think. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say. So on the line, I still have the winner of the lieutenant governor runoffs and primaries, John Wall, former ALGOP chairman. And with that, talking about your time as the ALGOP chair, you know, the legislature has done everything it can to defang the position of lieutenant governor. If you look over at our neighbor, Mississippi, the lieutenant governor there basically runs the state. Compared to the lieutenant governor here, it was already defanged after Steve Windham, and now they've, you know, this past session, they defanged it a little bit more. But that has never stopped you from not being able to get things done. Will Ainsworth was able to take a defanged lieutenant governor's position and get all kinds of stuff done. You, as the head of ALGOP, the Alabama Republican Party, had very, very little teeth. You had a bully pulpit, and you had some, you know, ability to do things, and you got all kinds of stuff done legislatively, but also culturally. With the you got Trump to come to Alabama like three times. You got a debate in Tuscaloosa. A presidential debate was done in the state of Alabama for the very first time because of the work that you did. The events when we would go to Wisconsin for the where there was inauguration in D.C. and then there was the
The convention.
RNC, yeah, the
Yeah.
convention. And the events that you put on, I had people that bought $50,000 tickets to go to these other fancy events, and they walked out after like 10 minutes and came back to the free events that you put on for Algot because the parties you threw were even better than the super big fancy, events and all these other things. And so you did a phenomenal job as the Algot chairman, really turning that position into something that was just kind of meh, into kind of a force to be reckoned with. What is your plan to do that as the lieutenant governor?
Yeah, I mean, look, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like you bring that same passion, that same intensity. Because look, the way I look at it, anything, I have a motto, and it's there's always a path to victory. You just have to find it, find the creative, outside the box way to get there. And look, I told somebody when they were talking about the lessening the power of the lieutenant governor, I said I don't mind that at all because my ability to get things done has always been more than using the rules to beat people over the heads. What I want to do is I want to be able to build a consensus, explain the values, why they matter, why it's better for the state of Alabama, for the people of Alabama, and then be able to get in there and actually build a consensus that gets it done. And so I embrace this. I don't care about the rules at all. I think my strength is going to be the bully pulpit.
Yeah.
It's going to be my relationship with Donald Trump and the White House. Getting things for Alabama, getting things done for Alabama, whether that's economic opportunities or infrastructure projects. And then also, look, my relationship with Tommy Tuberville. I worked on his campaign 6 years ago, served on his transition team. We've got a great relationship. We're going to be in lockstep, with his agenda coming down. And that's important because I don't know in my lifetime if we've had a governor and a lieutenant governor who are really working off the same page and engaged in the process together.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of really bright spots coming up for the spot of lieutenant governor. I don't mind the rule changes. We're going to get things done without the bureaucratic. I'm not a bureaucratic red tape kind of guy anyway. We're going to get things done without the bureaucratic red tape, and we're going to get it done for the people of the state.
Yep. And I think that's going to be excellent that you're going to have Tuberville with the bully pulpit, you with the bully pulpit. I think Catherine Robertson in there as AG. Everyone working in sync together to bring this vision that Tommy Tuberville has for the state. And we're talking about real generational change. And that's not like a campaign slogan. It's like, no, you don't understand. Look at the people that, Tommy Tuberville just made Phil Williams, the U.S. attorney of the Northern District of Alabama. That was, he got to pick that position. Do you know how many other like Yale and Harvard and Princeton grads that he could have put in that position that would have been politically expedient and beneficial to him? That's not what he did. He said, I'm putting a freaking patriot in here that's going to do the damn job and is going to save our country. That's the way that Tommy Tuberville approaches every single thing that he does. He is not doing anything for political expedience. He's trying to save the state and save the nation. And I'm excited to watch you guys work together.
No, look, it's going to be fun, and again, kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the last segment. This is our chance. Like Alabama will probably never have another opportunity to have this type of leadership in place that's ready to change Alabama forever. And when I say change Alabama forever, I mean for the good. Things like I know I got attacked a little bit for this, but I want to phase out our state income tax. Why on earth are we letting Mississippi get in front of us with phasing out the state income tax? So, why are we following other states? No, let's get out there. Let's make some institutional changes that are going to make the people of Alabama have a better life. Now it's the time to do it. We're not going to back down. We're not going to surrender, and we're going to fight for every single individual.
Amen. That's good stuff. Thinking about some of the stuff on your party platform. No state is as good as no state will ever be better than its pedagogical systems. And what I mean by that is the future of the state is children. The work you're doing on the library board is paramount in that. But I want to speak specifically to school choice and education because, if the pedagogical institutions you have, the public schools and the universities are not doing their job, it is impossible. You cannot rise any higher than what you are preparing the next generation to do. What are some of your priorities as you look into education in Alabama?
Look, and I appreciate this question because this is probably the issue that is nearest and dearest to my heart. If you look at my record as party chairman, fighting for curriculum transparency, getting that across the finish line, school choice itself, divisive concepts. These were things that the party, battles the party took on and helped our conservative members of the legislature kind of pass. And I think that has to continue because there's a battle for the very heart and the very souls of our children. And look, we all have to understand that. We've all got to get in the game, because this is not a conspiracy theory. This is not some random thing that talking point. This is about our children and their hearts and their future. So, and I think the battle goes hard. School choice is great. It gives parents the option to opt out. It gives parents the option for better education, whether it's homeschooling or church school or private school. But the vast majority of Alabama parents are still going to be left with our current education system.
Yep.
And I am not ready to abandon that. I think we have got to get in there. We've got to change curriculum. We've got to get the woke garbage out. Stop teaching children, stop making transgender education and DEI education more important than reading, writing, and arithmetic. Let's actually teach history again. Let's actually teach civics. So something that I would love to see is an Alabama-focused curriculum. Like, why are we bringing in national curriculums? Let's do something that actually represents the people of Alabama, the values of Alabama, the state of Alabama. And so I think education needs to be number one when we're talking about what we're going to do for the people of the state, how we're going to improve, because it's not just a better education for our children that leads to better jobs, that leads to their minds being clean and them actually being able to think. Like, there's so many things that we've got to teach critical thinking again in our classrooms. And so that's number one. And I think that's something that the elected officials you talked about, that's going to be a priority for moving out of this, moving into January where we actually take office.
Absolutely. Oh, and I love what you say. I mean, obviously, I think you have a homeschool background, if I remember correctly. I've got 7 kids. We've homeschooled into classical Christian schools. And of course, that's where my children are going to be. But like you said, so many of the children are going to be in those public schools. We can't abandon the public schools. We need to work as hard as we can. But what school choice for me does is it inserts competition. So now these public schools are going to be less concerned with gender ideology and more concerned with getting test scores up so that they can actually bring some of the idea is you're competing for those dollars.
And keeping market share, right? Yep. Like, look, we know, and this is not just Republican parents. This is independent parents, Democrat parents. They don't necessarily want their children being pushed towards a transgender lifestyle or whatever it is. I'm going to use that as an example. And if they have the option of being able to move their walk with the power of the purse, right? They can move not just with their feet but with the money.
Absolutely.
And the public school system lose market share. It forces the public school system to supply not just a better product, but a product that aligns more with the values of the people of the state.
Amen. Well, that's good stuff. John, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We're up against a break. Tremendously grateful for you and look forward to what you're going to do for the state of Alabama, brother.
Hey, really enjoyed it. It's good to be on the show.
All right. Take care. All right, guys. Talk 99.5. We're up against a break. We'll be back.